Hey there, welcome back to the channel. As always, we never monetize any of these videos / episodes. So if you do like what we're giving you here, please visit us at vulpinecreations.com and support us over there. We actually have a new release coming out this week, as well as a brand new release in early January of next year. If you're not signed up for our newsletter, vulpinecreations.com, sign up for the newsletter. The only thing that we'll send you is either things that we truly think are valuable for you or to let you know of a new product release. We're not going to hit you up every week. We just want you to be aware when we do have new product releases or little tidbits of information that we may think is valuable for you. As always, this whole channel is just about helping you become the best entertainer and performer possible. So thanks for being here. I'm Adam-Wilber.
I'm Felix.
And we want to talk about Chapter 7 today of Showmanship for Magicians. So Felix, what exactly, if you had to synopsis in a nutshell, what is Chapter 7 about?
I think this time the headline basically says it all. It's about personality and the necessity of selling yourself. So
in this, we reiterate this time and time again. This is an old text, but this one specifically rings true, very, very true for today's world. So I love this chapter. I think it's one of the most meaty chapters we've hit so far. And moving forward, we're going to start getting into a lot more of the actionable stuff and a lot less of the theory or sort of outdated stuff. So we're talking about character, personality, what makes someone like you, right? What can you do to make somebody like you? Because at the end of the day, that's what they're buying into. I just finished Will Smith's book. It's called Will. It's his autobiography. And a huge part of that is him talking about actors, right? It's not so much the movie that sells well. It's what actor can they put in that role that they know will put people in the seats, right? So Will Smith talks about this being the most in-demand actor there is. And the way they gauge that is how many seats do they fill on the opening week. It's the same thing with magicians, right? That same sort of, they can get a magician anywhere, but they can only get Michael Carbonaro from so-and-so, right? And it's because of that personality that distinguishes him from an Adam-Wilber or a Felix, right? And I think it's a really true and poignant statement that your personality plays a massive role in who you are and how bookable you are. But Felix, how exactly do we form that personality? How do we look at our own personality, determine what might be working, what might not be working? Is there a toolkit that we can use to help our personality be to the level that we would need it to be a higher booked entertainer?
I hope so, to be honest, because this is what I guess this is the major question we all have. There's one statement. I think it was Di Vernon who put this out. He said, "A magician is an actor who plays the role of a magician." But in the same breath, you can say that the tricks don't matter. It's the entertainment, or better, the experience the spectators have. So if the tricks don't matter, the people have to buy into you. And starting with this, there are several angles we were discussing beforehand, right? Starting out from copying or basically reiterating routines from other performers so you can get into the groove what a great performance looks like and make it more and more your own. But then on the other side, also not to copy all the traits of this other magician, because then from effect to effect, if they're pieced together like a puzzle from different performers, also your personality would change, and this would definitely throw your spectators off.
Great point. So what we're talking about prior is the idea of learning the movements, the timing, the mannerisms, the actions, the things that you do to make the effect work, the laugh lines, things like that. What we're not talking about replicating is the personality, because that's the one thing that's like a fingerprint. You're not going to be David Williamson or Bill Malone or Matt King. You're going to be Adam-Wilber using the actions that those performers have already tried and tested, right? And you said it perfectly. Try stringing a show together, 15-minute show, 3 effects with 3 different performers and emulating those performers, and it will be almost impossible to watch, right?
Yeah.
Because you're confusing your audience by saying, well, who is this person really? There was this crazy wacky guy who started, then this like suave sexy performer in the middle, and at the end this like comedic. It doesn't work, right?
Completely lost his way there. But
exactly.
We were talking about actors, and this is why I brought up this statement from Di Vernon. The magician is an actor. I think it was Di Vernon, right?
I'm not. I'll say yes, but every time you don't know who created something, it's a pretty safe bet to either say Ed Marlowe or Di Vernon.
Yeah, if you heard it different before, you heard it here first.
Correct us on the comment.
Yeah, please. No, the thing is, when we're looking at actors, and I read a bunch of books about character development for stage and creating characters for screenplays, for example. Mm-hmm. And the interesting part is what you just said, Adam, with all the mannerisms, the way you talk, the way you use your hands, your body language, everything, right? The things you do, the things which make you are part of a character. And when you create a screenplay or some director is looking for a specific person for a role, he has a good picture in his head of what this person is going to behave based on their backstory, for example, because everything you experienced, everything you went through in your life makes you and basically carves out this diamond which is you at the end of all days. But if you want to impersonate a character, and this is also something I think we see in movies nowadays in comparison to, 40 years ago, actors are impersonating people which have a backstory, and they always ask themselves the question, how would this character react in this situation to make it more believable? And back then, let's say 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I think Marlon Brando was it, and if I get in the timeline wrong, please excuse this, but he said you can only play so many movies because you only have so many faces. So you need to get into the head of the character, and you need to become this character to be believable on the silver screen. But this also eats away your true personality. While nowadays actors are more and more themselves on screen, right? You see an actor in a different dress with a different haircut playing himself in another situation. I think best idea for that is Chris Hemsworth, because Chris Hemsworth, in my opinion, plays the same character over and over again. Ryan Reynolds. Every movie you see with Ryan Reynolds.
Al Pacino.
Yeah,
right.
It's him, different haircut, different costume, and that's it. But back then, you really they were more and more emphasis on impersonating another person, another character, which is not themselves on stage.
And to bring that to, to bring it to the magic world, it's very much my character's an amplified version of who I really am. The values I stand for, the humor that I think is funny, the history that I have lived. That makes it easy for me to be personable on stage because I don't have to method act, right? I'm not going on stage as if I was raised by let's say some FBI agent was my father, and that's my backstory, and he was always training me to be super observant. That's why I've got all these skills and observation. That would be every time I get on stage, I'd have to get into that mode and relive that, and that would then become my personality on stage, right? And that's fine. I'm just not a skilled enough actor to try and play that. So for me, the easiest thing for me to be is me, an amplified, entertaining version of me, but I can step on stage and I know my backstory. I know my personality, right? I don't have to think about that. I just let that come out naturally. Most magicians, I think, fall in line with that, an amplified version of who they really are, what their life's hobbies are, what their circumstances are, and they play into that. Not all. A lot of magicians play an actual character, and that's fine. Keep in mind, if you are going to play that character, you have to know their personality, not just their character. I could say I was a Wild West bank robber. I know what that looks like dressing. I know what that may sound like as I speak. But what I might not pay attention to is what happens when a waiter drops a plate. How does that character react? You can't break that character and go, oh, no, are you okay? Did you drop the plates? Because you've just ruined the entire suspension of disbelief for your audience at that moment, right? It's like an artist breaking the fourth wall and a movie star talking normally So let's say Will Smith in Pursuit of Happiness, halfway through the movie, stops and looks at the camera and talks as Will Smith for something, and then goes back in character. You're out of that movie, right? You've given up on that movie. So that's a long way to say it's easier to develop a persona or a personality if it's based around you as an actual character. If you're putting a real character that you've thought up into that role as the magician, then you have to do what actors do. And we touched on this on a earlier video or episode, but you've got to then think what motivates this person, what scares this person. You've got to live all that. So just know if you're going to put a character on stage to build a personality that's unique and likable, you've got to live that character. You have to know
think this is a very important point. This character needs to be likable. And I'm not entirely convinced that everyone can pull off every...
Real quick, does it? Because couldn't you be a really good insult comic, right? You're not like...
The idea is... I think there are specific people who can get away with much more than others. For example, I don't know, Piff the Magic Dragon. Just write it down. Yeah, write down what he's saying and what he's doing, and just pull away the visuals and the way he behaves on stage and just read it out. It wouldn't do good in court. That's what I'm trying to say.
Exactly. Yeah. If you read that, you'd go, "There's no way anyone in the audience likes him." Yeah. But then you put his timing, his costume, everything together, and you go, So, yeah, an insult comic can get away with being likable, but what's making them likable is that, right? Is the fact that you know what you're getting into. So I was trying to throw you off there, but you're exactly right. Personality, what's going to make you the most successful is being likable, right? So if your character is likable, not necessarily relatable, but likable, that's what we're shooting for, right? That's the goal, is that everything on stage allows us to be more easily digested and more easily liked. And this whole chapter really goes into, well, how do you do that? How do you become a likable person, and not just on stage, but in real life, right?
Can I ask you a question on this part? Because you always said the job of a magician is to go on stage, tell everyone that you are going to fool them and lie to them, and they will still like you after that. And I think this is the segue for exactly what you are trying to say at the moment, because being likable has a lot to do with empathy from your spectators. And Fitzky is putting it down quite well, because there were three bullet points. Just a second. Where is it?
So just start back in with, there are 3 bullet points.
Yeah. Because there are 3 bullet points. The general appeal responded first. There are 3 bullet points. The general appeal responded first to the allure of the outstanding persona. Secondly, to the reasons why people are doing things. And thirdly, to what people do.
It's the old saying, you go to an event, people aren't going to remember the food, they're not going to remember the music, they're going to remember how you made them feel. So what he's trying to, if I get this right, and correct me if I'm wrong, most important, who you are, what you stand for, your personality. Secondly, he basically says the least important thing is what you do, right? That's the old saying. The tricks don't matter.
And he writes it directly in the chapter, right? There's one line which says the tricks mean jack squat. I'm paraphrasing here, if you don't.
And of course, they have to be fooling and entertaining. It doesn't mean you can go up there with a shit trick and no method behind it. That's not what we're saying. We're just saying that the most up-to-date build to lemon, that's an electronic device that does all the work for you, compared to one made 100 years ago, it's the same thing. It's the presentation of it, and he says right out there, what they care about first and foremost is who you are. What's your personality like? Then if they're on board with that, great. What tricks do you aid in, them falling in love with that personality? I think it's a tough one, right? Like, how do you develop a personality that people like you? That's a really hard... First and foremost, everyone's different, right? What one person loves, another person may hate. But in this chapter, there's a great, I mean, he draws attention to Dale Carnegie's book, right? How to Win Friends and Influence People, which you have to read if you haven't read. If you want to be an entertainer, you have to read this book. It's really that simple. You're not doing your homework and you're not putting in your hours if you haven't read this book, regardless if you're an entertainer or not, but specifically for an entertainer. And Felix took some great notes here. The main things, what do you do to win friends and influence people? How do you get people on your side? How do you become personable?
How do you build rapport fast? That's the main question here. And obviously there are some points which are quite obvious. For example, remember their names, smile, listen, and truly listen and respond to what they are saying. And this is also, I think this is important. When you listen, you can adjust your effects and your presentation to the spectators, right? If you said it last, Adam. If you walk up to a table and there is an accountant, you can come up with a different trick which would suit to a numbers oriented person or something like that. So relatability, and he says that make people the star of his presentation or something like that. And again, I'm paraphrasing.
One of my biggest pet peeves that magicians do is walk up to a group. Let's say you're doing strolling and you ask a question that you clearly don't care about the answer.
Yeah.
It's so easy to pick up on that, and it's so offensive, right? You've interrupted their personal space. You've taken over like a hurricane. You've asked a question and then you walk over their answer. It's just, it's so easy to do as a performer, and I've been guilty of it for many years. But that little thing, ask something, wait for their response, register their response, which means listen to what they said, and then give a thoughtful response. That little thing that you could change in your strolling magic will dramatically change the way that people perceive you, right? You've been in conversations where you're talking and you can tell that the other person's just staring at you, waiting for you to stop talking so they can say what's in their mind. You know very, very clearly that they're not listening to what you're saying. They're waiting for their opportunity. And as a performer, if you do that, it's a very fast track to be not liked, right? It's a very good way to be the opposite of personable. So there's a saying, be more interested than interesting, right? Inherently, we are very interesting. We go out and we do miracles. That's a given. We don't have to try too hard there. The minute you tell someone I'm a magician, you become more interesting than them, okay? It's just part of the game. So don't worry about being interesting. We're inherently interesting. If you're doing good magic, you're interesting. But be interested, at least as interested as you are interesting. And you can't do that if you're waiting for your turn to talk. You've got to be there and hear what's happening, hear what's being said, be cognizant of your surroundings. If there's some mingling going on at a group right here and they're talking about something, be aware of that, right? So the idea of being more interested than interesting, I think, is a very good way for you to be more personable.
And it's 100% the behavior of flirting. If you meet someone you are truly interested in, you will listen. And you can definitely imagine what would happen if you walk over whatever this person says and just talk about yourself.
Which I've been on plenty of Tinder dates where that's exactly what happens. And it's human nature, right? We want to impress, and a lot of times in impressing, we think that impressing people comes from boasting. This is how good I am for X, Y, and Z. The most impressive people are the ones that can say the least and mean the most, right? So the most stoic philosophers or the best educators can get the most amount out of the least said. And usually it's because they listen. They genuinely listen, right? So that's some of the points that Dale has here, which are sort of rules of thumb that seem common sense, but we'll reiterate them just in case they're not. Don't criticize people, right? Don't criticize their ideas, especially as an entertainer, but even in general conversation, try not to criticize. Try to understand people, regardless of where they come from. That comes back to the empathy, being empathetic about somebody's situation, right? An example, I was in New Orleans working at the magic shop, and a woman came and grabbed both of her children by the ears as they were watching my magic trick and yanked them out of the magic shop, because in her history of her life and her culture, magic means something drastically different than what it means to me. So instead of me saying, "Are you crazy, lady? These are card tricks," to pause and be empathetic about the situation. This woman thinks that some guy she doesn't know is putting spells on the thing she loves more than anything in the world, her children, right? So for me to be liked in that would really me to be, okay, shut up, step back, and let her do what she needs to do. I'm not going to convince her that these are card tricks. That's her entire history that's built to this, this thought that she's got. I could argue with her and make it worse, or I could step back and let her find her own way, right? So try to understand and be empathetic. Look for the good points in others and express them, right? So if someone is, easiest example, Felix, those are dope glasses, dude. I really like those glasses.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Oh, thank you so much.
Or, Felix, you made an awesome point at the beginning of our video call, and emphasizing the point. It shows I paid attention, and it shows, hey, you're doing something great. The only reason I invent magic today is because someone many years ago said to me, hey, you're really creative. If they never said that to me, which they didn't have to say, right? There was nothing they were gaining from that by saying it. But that one little thing, which was them being personable to me, inspired me to create magic, right? So find good traits in people and let them know you found those traits. And it could be as simple as glasses. That could come off as phony. But if it's something they said or did that made you feel a certain way, reiterate it to them. Let them know that, right? That's a great way to get people on your side. Compliment them genuinely. Not a facade compliment.
And this one point, make them the star of the performance, makes it so difficult for sucker tricks, or tricks like color changing knives, free shell game, fast and loose, and all those other things. Because basically you're playing with them, right? And if you come off as arrogant, as too harsh, or whatever the right adjective would be. But you're basically making a fool out of themselves, right? A fool out of them in front of their friends, in front of everybody. Not a good feeling.
You're trying to, poke fun at them to make yourself more interesting.
Yeah.
And that's the opposite of being personable, right? They also says think in terms of the other people's point of view, and then 6 ways to get people to like you in general. And do you want me to read through those, or do you want to read through those?
Sure. Go ahead.
So the first is become genuinely interested in other people, right? That's what we were talking about. Be more interested than interesting. And that doesn't mean, what do you do for work? Okay, as soon as he's done talking, I'm going to say this line. It means, what do you do for work? Whatever they say, resonate, think of something to say, and respond, right? Secondly, smile. A smile goes extremely far. If you look at people who play the violin, there's usually 2 kinds of people. Very serious students that play and they're very serious with their face. And then there are people that you can see on YouTube that play and they're dancing around and they're smiling. It could be the exact same piece of music. You tell me which one is more entertaining or enjoyable to watch. Watching someone smiling, having a good time, or watching someone who looks like they're so focused that it's almost painful. It's the same thing in conversation. If you're having a conversation with somebody, a spectator on stage, they're probably going to be nervous. They're not used to being on stage in front of people. But if you look at them, turn your mic off quickly, smile, and say, take a deep breath, we're going to have a great time. That one line can change the entire projection of what that person experiences on stage, just by smiling, right? Letting them know, hey, it's all good. We're going to have a blast together. But if you're in your own head and you're so serious about getting your next prop and your next line and all this, you forget about the spectator on stage. They're not going to leave that stage thinking I had a great time with the magician on stage. They're going to leave going, thank God I'm done with that. I was so nervous up there. So smile to people as often as you possibly can. There's also some science that say you can force yourself to smile and load up your synapses of dopamine and serotonin. So you can actually trick yourself into being in a better mood as well. Remember people's names. We've said it over and over on this channel. Find their name.
This is so difficult for people. Even for myself, if I'm going into presentation mode or something like that, are very focused. It's so hard for me to remember names from time to time. Do you have any tips on that?
Yeah, so it is hard, and for me, the reason I found it to be hard is because I'm in my own head. I'm not interested in them.
Yep.
I'm just going through what I know I need to say. What was your first name? And that's it. I'm not listening. So be in that moment, be present in the moment. And when they say the first name, there are tricks that you can do, mental games that you can play to remember it. But I like to do what Penn from Penn and Teller do. He just says their name over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So, hey, what's your name, Susan? Great, Susan. Thanks so much for being here. Susan, what I'm going to have you do is pick a word out of a book.
It's their favorite word anyways, right?
Yep.
So, for example, if you get a couple of more people involved in that, like you have this great card trick, 5-card stomper. So you're dealing with 5 spectators at a time. And you meet them, and this whole setup of the trick takes a couple of seconds. Any tips on remembering more than one name?
I don't remember more than one name, so I don't keep asking them for their name, right? Because if I ask their name initially, I get it. I've been interested. I'm interested in your name. If I then say, what was your name again? What was your name again? I'm now not interested anymore. I've forgotten their name. So I'll just get everybody's name. I might remember 1 or 2, and then I'll just keep referencing that person's name. But I'll try my best, and I'm guilty of it. I do it too often. What was your name again? But if that is the problem, I might say, I have a horrible memory with names. I'm really sorry. I'll remember your face till the day I die. But names, my brain doesn't work that way. Mm-hmm. That's okay too, right? But no, I mean, I'm not great at it. There's some literature by, just Google how to remember someone's name. And there's a bunch of cool tricks you can do that will emphasize that. But it's something else that you'll have to practice and study. For me, I get their name, look them in the eye, smile, be present in that moment, try my best to remember by using it over and over. If it's 5 people, I know I'm not going to remember all their names. So I'll try my best to not, hey, what was your name again? I'm sorry, I forgot your name. Because you don't matter. You mean nothing to me, you know what I'm saying? But more so like...
You had this nice way of putting it. Sir or ma'am, could you please refresh my memory on your name? I really like.
And there's a bunch of funny lines, of what was your first name again? Brian. Brian, hell of a memory on you there, right? Yeah. Things like that are funny, but names are important. People want to hear it. Watch Penn and Teller on one of their live performances and watch what Penn does with somebody's first name. Mm-hmm. Once you pay attention to it, you'll be like, good Lord, he said that guy's first name 35 times in 6 minutes. Okay. He remembered it, and that guy probably felt like the star of that show. So remembering someone's name.
Yeah, he's also definitely not losing focus and drifting away, right? Because if you're notched every 30 seconds or something like that with your name, you're going to pay attention.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep. Be a good listener and encourage others to talk about themselves, right? That's such a strong point, to ask somebody about themselves. Hey, what line of profession are you in? Hey, do you have any children? People love to talk about themselves. And in turn, you're learning about them, being interested in them. In turn, being more likable to them, right? Again, let's take a date. You go out on a date, and if you sit there on your phone and only wait for her to ask about you, probably going to be your only date. If the entire date you're diving deep into what gets her excited about life, what scares her about life, what has she done in the past, what she want to do in the future. If you're a girl, obviously, reverse that, whatever. Whoever you're talking to, a date, an audience member, be interested. The best way to be interested is to ask them about themselves. Danny Garcia is really good in strolling situations where he goes up to meet strangers. That's the first few minutes of him. His presentation is learning about this person. And that's why everybody loves Danny Garcia. You can't watch him perform magic and have him walk away without going, I really like that guy. That's on purpose, because he's more interested than he is interesting. Now, he's one of the most interesting people in the world, right? The job inherently consulting for TV magic stars. But he doesn't let you know that because he's too busy finding out about you. So ask them about themselves and listen to their answers. Elaborate on their answers, right? Everyone's been in an interview where these same 15 questions have been asked in this same order 1,000 times. You don't want your correspondence with audience members to feel the same way, okay? And then lastly, talk in terms of others' interests and sincerely make that person feel important. So if I'm in a group of engineers and I'm talking about mathematics isn't a good thing, but let's say I'm talking about Bitcoin, well, that's not why they're there, right? So it's almost like know your audience and be able to talk about what's interesting to them as opposed to what's interesting to you. If it is, your script is just something that's off topic for that audience, you still got to find a way to tie it together so it is interesting to them.
And the same goes also for the vocabulary you use, the words you use to talk to the spectators. If they're too far out or very specific and people are not in the know of the specific topic, it can come off as condescending because they feel dumb in this situation.
Yeah, it's know your audience, right? If you're speaking over their heads or under their heads, it's very hard to pay attention and be there for the ride. I want to sort of close the chapter on, I guess, the most important notes that I pulled from this. So Felix writes up notes. Felix, are we going to be offering these notes up for people that they can have?
Sure. The whole bullet points and all the information is going to be in the what's it called?
Video description?
Right. Thank you very much. In the description
Beautiful.
of the video.
So every week, Felix goes through and writes notes. Guys, please do keep in mind, English is Felix's second language. If you guys are unaware of that, he speaks German as his first language and is very fluent in English, but it's a little more difficult in writing some. So if there's some grammatical errors, again, these are the notes from the chapter. It's a good way to sort of refresh your memory, but they're not definitively, written out beautifully and things of that nature. They're a great reference point, and we do ask you to jump in there, but we don't need a bunch of comments letting us know of any spelling errors because unfortunately we don't have the time to go through them all. That's it. But I do want to end on my favorite notes from this section. And it's really sort of the overall arching theme of what we're trying to say here. So he says, keep these identifications consistent and in your character with your act. So that just again goes to who are you? And let that resonate through your entire act instead of trying to play multiple parts of different people, because those personalities are like fingerprints. If you try and mold too many personalities into your own, it comes off as fake.
Yeah.
He says you must be pleasing to the spectators, but all the time, regardless of the basic material. Try to give everything to every individual, but make it exclusively your own, right? So give yourself in your entirety to the audience. The material itself, while important, is purely secondary. Think, this is what he's asking you to think for every performance. I've got to sell them on me. I've got to make them know that I am the important thing. Forget what a great trick that the linking rings or the cut rope or the egg bag is. Let them have all of you that you can give to them, right? The minute you stop selling yourself in the entertainment field and start selling your gold or your goods instead, i.e. your tricks, that's the very minute that you start to pick your own pocket. So again, the minute that you start selling your goods instead of yourself is the minute you start to lose money. So if they're hiring you because you can do tricks, then you're not going to get as much money, or you're not going to be as in demand if they're hiring you because of who you are on stage, right? So just as much focus needs to go into who you are as to what you do, if not more. And I think he's trying to stress in this that your personality on stage is 100% what's going to get you hired. Maybe not for the first time. Maybe that's your marketing or your talent agent, whatever that might be. But that first show means nothing, right? We're trying to build relationships with people. And the way to do that is to get a client that books you every year or multiple times a year. And the way to do that isn't that you do the best egg bag or the best linking ring. The way to do that is to have a great personality on stage that's relatable, that's just as interesting as it is interested. That's why they say people do business with their friends. So all of that is to say your personality is more important than the stuff you do on stage. And the best way to learn how to get a great personality that will make people fall in love with you is to read the old classic, How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you can absorb the material in that book and translate that to your stage, you will be way, way ahead of almost every performing entertainer out there who's bought the next trick, done it as it was taught in the tutorial with the same timing and cadence and persona as the person who taught it, you're going to be light years ahead of them. So
I think this is one of those ways magic books are way better than actual videos, even though I hate learning from magic books because it's very difficult for me. About to swear there. But if you read the trick, you would play it in your character from the first minute you try to perform it, because you have to imagine it, how it would look, how you would say it, how you would pace it, and all the other things. As soon as you see, for example, Adam on one of our tutorials and see his performance, you start to imitate immediately, because you see pacing, you see how he's talking to the spectators, how he's addressing them, and how he's directing focus. You can't do this with magic books. You need to try it out for yourselves, and you need to stumble forward until you succeed with this trick.
Yeah, books in general. That's why very avid readers say, I would never watch a movie before seeing the book. That's stealing me of all of my joy of the book, right? If they're painting the scene with words, that's up to me to really decide what that looks like. If I go sit in the theater, they make all the decisions for me. It's very much the same, right? We can watch and emulate, but if we want to be a genuine performer on stage, then that's just good for learning, right? And that's okay. Everyone does that. They're going to look like a Bill Malone or a Bill Abbott because they bought their trick. But over time, you'll start realizing it doesn't feel natural, and you'll start putting your persona and character on top of it. And then you string a bunch of tricks together with your persona on top of all of them, and that's how you distinguish yourself from a good performer to a great performer, or from somebody who is in demand for who they are, not what they do, right? That's what we want to try and be. We want to be in demand because someone wants Adam-Wilber or Felix, not because someone wants a magician. Someone wants a magician, they can go on Google, find a magician for $150, and they can probably have 10 to pick from. If they want an Adam-Wilber, they have to go to adamwilber.com, contact me, and pay whatever I ask, okay? And the only way to get there is for them to like and need me instead of like and need a magician. That all comes to your personality and your persona.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of wraps up the chapter 7, the importance of personality. How do you develop one that's likable and that would be easily, repurchased? How could I make it for a client very easy for them to book me again for another event? And the best way to do that is to do the homework, go buy the book. If you've already read the book, own the book, put it on your bookshelf and keep referencing it. It's not a hard book to read. It's just got a lot of great insight on how you can be more likable. And if you start practicing these things in your everyday, then it becomes second nature on stage, and it'll blow your mind how much more receptive your audience is, how many more people come up to you after the show and want to converse with you or get your card. It really plays a big role, and it's one of those things that I wish I knew when I started in magic, and I knew the importance of, because it was 10 years of my life of trial and error to realize how important something like your persona on stage really is. And I hope that puts some weight on how heavy this topic really is, because it really is an important one. And as we progress on in the book, we're going to keep diving into some really actionable, important things that will bring your entertainment from where it is now to hopefully skyrocket at a new level.
Okay, and just to round this out and give you more information and resources on this specific topic of building a character, I will put down some links in the description where you can find some books which are used by film students in Hollywood productions to carve out characters from basically nothing and come up with a backstory and see what goes in there. And on the other hand, please, Adam, refresh my memory on this one book we were working on, The Story of You.
Funny you should say that. So it's the message of you. This is the journal version of it, Judy Carter. So she's got a book that dives into it. She's a comedian, and she's talking about exactly what we just discussed in this entire topic, which is there's a million comedians. How does she get high-paid gigs? And it's about taking stories from your life and realizing that those stories have way more impact than we may think. This is an awesome, awesome workbook for any magician or entertainer. This is the workbook version of it. You could actually just buy the workbook. You don't need to buy the actual book, or buy them both and read the book and then start filling out the workbook. This could quite truly develop your entire character over the course. You're not going to do this in a week. This is a pretty meaty book with a lot of exercises.
Yeah.
You fill this out, you want to be a public speaker of any kind, this is worth its weight in gold. So as Felix said, he'll put the link to this in the description. We're not affiliated. Probably would have been smart for us to, but at the end of the day, this thing is $20 and well worth 10 times that. Because if you're really trying to develop a character or a personality, you've got more stories in your life already that can help so many people that you don't even know. This thing will help pull those out.
And just as a little teaser, you will see us, Adam and myself, work with this book on my presentation, because we are going to take my backstory and my experiences and my character and then adjust tricks we've come up with in a way that they are personal to me and fit my character better and are also more believable if I'm on stage and telling this story about myself or the story about specific things which happened to me instead of something which would be on the DVDs or the downloads of our effects.
Yep. Awesome. As always, thank you guys so much for being here. We'll have 3 videos up this week, and we'll see you on the next one.